There may be something in Star Wars Episode 9 that both the First Order and the Resistance are looking for. This MacGuffin might push all of the characters together and ultimately decide the fate of the galaxy. In this video, I want to talk about this MacGuffin and speculate on three main things that I think it might be. Join our fast-growing community of nerds and have your voice become a part of the content by participating in our polls and Q&As. Oh, and subscribing helps. What is up, everybody? Happy Star Wars Sunday to you. I'm, of course, Josh. This is, of course, The Den of Nerds. And man, you are gonna love this video. This is some pretty sweet stuff, man. Just speculating on what this MacGuffin could actually be. There's some really cool possibilities out there. Some drawing from some ancillary material, some of the novels, some of the comics, and some just drawing from things we've heard about in other leaks from like Reddit or 4chan. Now, before we get into all of this crazy speculation, I wanna shout out Jeremy Jemiah Williamson, who got the nerd card question correct in one of my recent Star Wars videos. You definitely know your stuff when it comes to Star Wars, so shout out to you, Jeremy, and we'll do another nerd card question at the end of this video. So this report majorly comes from MakingStarWars.net. Now, Jason Ward over there did a report on this, I want to say over a week ago, talking about how he was hearing from sources that there will be a MacGuffin in Star Wars Episode 9. This thing, whatever it is, will be something that both sides of this conflict are racing towards, and it's possible that whoever gets it first will end up coming out on top in Star Wars Episode 9. The very literal fate of the galaxy might rest upon the Resistance getting to this MacGuffin before the First Order. So I want to now talk about the top three things that I think this MacGuffin might be in Star Wars Episode 9 and which one is my favorite. Stay to the end because the last one's my favorite and it's, in my opinion, the dopest one. So, number one, this could indeed be the Force Child. And if you've never heard of this concept of the Force Child before, I recommend you check out my Force Child theory video. But essentially, in the OG plot leak, by the way, my theory on this predates that plot leak, I thought it might be a possibility even just upon seeing The Last Jedi. But in that plot leak, it basically talks about this idea that Kylo Ren and Rey had this child during the hand-touching scene in The Force Awakens. Some kind of cosmic force craziness was going on there, and they have a child. And so, falling in line with that plot leak, you know, this could potentially be the MacGuffin, this Force Child. And the natural question would be, well, wait a minute, why would this be a MacGuffin? Why wouldn't Rey just know where her child was? Well, the answer to that's kind of simple, right? I mean, she would probably put the child in safekeeping somewhere, perhaps give the child to someone else to watch over, and she might not even want to know where the child is at, because if you think about the Force bond connection that Kylo Ren and Rey have, if it is not truly severed, then she might be afraid that Kylo would be able to sort of enter her mind, see perhaps what she is seeing, and find the child for himself. Also, definitely check out the Force Child video, but suffice it to say that this Force Child between Rey and Kylo would be like an omnipotent Force god, like just the craziest Force user we've ever seen. And so that is potentially something big enough to drive the plot of the movie. And even in a situation where Kylo leaves the First Order and either joins Rey or joins the Resistance or is just redeemed, you could still have Hux looking for this child. Hux would love to have the child of Rey and Kylo under his control, and that would be a crazy way for the movies to go after Episode 9. Now, the number two thing that I think this could be would be evidence of the Star Forge. Now, this once again goes back to the OG plot leak that we first got on Reddit by someone who has gotten stuff right before, so we have to at least take it into consideration. Now, if you don't know what the Star Forge is, it is a facility from Legends that I believe Revan used, maybe it was Malik, but either way, it was used to create a massive amount of weapons and technology. And the OG plot leak for Star Wars Episode 9 stated that we would have some kind of a similar facility in Star Wars Episode 9. This facility would create ships, would create maybe fuel cells, perhaps droids, or other things that would make other planets wealthy and basically just help the galaxy out. And even more interesting is that in that plot leak, the idea was that Kylo would be considered a benevolent leader, that he'd be helping out a lot of people in the galaxy, and they'd be like, why are we even fighting against this guy? Life's really, really good right now. And then you come to find out that within the unknown regions, he is enslaving a bunch of people in order to have the Star Forge up and running so that he could create all the stuff that gives all the wealth to our galaxy. Sort of a basic plot of like disenfranchising people that are far away to give people in the core world like a much better life. Kind of like a meta commentary on like what modern American life is like. So I can totally see this happening in the film. And if this does happen, there could be this thing, maybe a security hologram, maybe like some kind of mapping of the system itself, but it could be be evidence of the Star Forge, right? And so perhaps this evidence is in the known galaxy, and if certain worlds discover this, they would obviously reject the First Order and Kylo and everything that came with that. And so perhaps it's sort of like a media file, right? Like this is just the damning evidence for Kylo and the First Order. In that original plot leak, we did hear that Kylo Ren was looking for a leaker, someone that was leaking evidence of perhaps the Star Forge from the First Order to these other worlds. And in that plot leak, it was described that that character would be Hux. That Hux, in an attempt to undermine Kylo, was putting out all this evidence talking about the Star Forge and the disenfranchisement of all of these people in the unknown regions. So to me, this is the one that kind of fits the least, but I did want to mention it because it falls in line with some of the things we saw in that first plot leak. But I think the main reason I don't buy this is because it's kind of like a weird MacGuffin. I don't know if I would necessarily call that a MacGuffin because it would be something that people would know about it, unless it was dressed up in a way in which it was just this file that, if given to the galaxy, would ruin the First Order, and they kept it like a big secret as far as like what it was, then it's not really a MacGuffin. Also, it's not controversial. Like the idea of this coming out, I don't think would be controversial to anybody in the fan base. And I tried to get into the headspace of people that didn't think anything was controversial in The Last Jedi, but then thought that this was controversial. I tried to get into that headspace, and I just don't see those kind of people thinking that this evidence of the Star Forge would be controversial, and definitely not delightful either. Like, what's up with that delightful line? Now, the last possibility here, and the absolute dopest one, and the one that I hope they go to, would be that if this MacGuffin was some kind of a Force relic or an ancient Force user. Back when Snoke theories were all the rage, Star Wars fans would scour over every bit of piece of canon material trying to find some answers for who Snoke was and how he got his power. One of the biggest things people talked about was this idea that Palpatine was looking for something in the unknown regions. He had meditated within the dark side of the Force. He felt this incredibly strong nexus of dark side energy out in the unknown regions, and he even went as far as to say he thought it might be the source of his power. Now, back then, people thought that that could have been Snoke, and I think now we're starting to see that it probably was not Snoke, but it could still be connected to Snoke. There could be something out there that perhaps gave the Supreme Leader his power, perhaps amplified his power. Maybe it was the thing that was giving the power to Palpatine as well. So if this thing is the MacGuffin, I personally think it's the best because it sort of opens the door for a lot of interesting things going on with the lore of the Force, this idea of the cosmic Force, even Snoke, talking about what was in the unknown regions and how the Supreme Leader got all of his power. And if it is some kind of a relic that can imbue people with even more power, then, I mean, obviously this is something that Kylo Ren would want, and the Resistance could be looking for it as well. Now, the only problem with that is it's kind of like a weird concept to throw into the last part of a trilogy. Doesn't really seem to be connected that much to anything else that's going on in the movies, but perhaps Snoke is the explanation for that. Snoke and young Luke, or when Luke was just running around looking for relics, perhaps this is something he was aware of and maybe has more to do with perhaps why he stepped away from the Jedi Order. I just like it a lot because it's kind of a fresh idea and can lead to interesting places for other stories to go as well. But that's it, guys. Those are my 3 speculative possibilities for what the MacGuffin could be in Star Wars Episode 9. Either way, I'm pretty pumped for this film. I want to know what you think about this MacGuffin. Let me know what you think about all these different possibilities in the comment section below. Now let's check the nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know, what Star Wars novel was it written in that Palpatine thought this power out in the unknown regions could be the source of his power? What novel was that in? Answer that question in the comment section below. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.